Hello everyone, Reggie Time here, and today we're going to be talking about how to play and how to try and avoid the frustration that is readily available to us all when playing against fishy players. A lot of you guys have followed me onto Sky, or you've followed my advice and you're playing on fishier sites in your own location, or as fishy as you can find. For example, Ignition or Global in the US. Some of you Swedish guys, I don't know if Svenska spell's still a thing, but maybe you're on there. And you're going to come up against a whole host of like really bad fishy type players. Mostly loose passive, we would say, because they're the ones that are going to frustrate the crap out of us the most. Like the super loose, bad aggressive ones, they're not going to frustrate us because we know how to play against them. We just, excuse me, just while I clear my throat. For the most part, we know how to play against them. We just make a hand and just cling on for grim death, you know, or we 3-bet them, and we 3-bet them really big with like super primo value stuff, and then just like either call them down if they start donking, or just make big bets into them. And I mean, the aggro fish are pretty damn easy to play against. It's the loose passive ones that seem to get under everyone's skin. The guys that are like limp calling super huge rages with like 4-3 suited, 5-6 suited, and just not folding when you flop bottom pair. And a lot of you guys are just blowing your fucking brains out, just bluffing them, or just going the opposite way and just giving up. Every time you miss, you give up, and you never try to bluff them. And it's like you've learned a lot about poker, but then it kind of, these fish just make you forget it all. It just all goes out of the window. You know, you're not bluffing sensibly. You're either just bluffing too much against them because they're frustrating the crap out of you, and you're using all kinds of like hands with not much equity to bluff them with, or you're flopping reasonable equity versus them but not having a made hand, and then not using that hand to semi-bluff them and to build big pots for when you do make your hand, and then you can get that big value bet in and gets paid off, that more than compensates you for all like the smaller bluffs you've tried that have failed, that you haven't ended up triple barreling with. I was going to use some hand examples, but I couldn't really find any super good ones, and I created 3 or 4, but they were created and they were a bit, I don't know, they weren't great. So we're not going to do that. What we're going to do instead is we're just going to talk briefly about like what kind of things people are saying on the forums, the bad advice that I see going around on the forums, on the Facebook group. And I mean no disrespect to the guys who've been posting in this particular thread here, but I just seen some like really poor adjustments and being advised and what have you. So we're going to look at a couple of the replies to the post, and I'm going to challenge what the replies are, not in an aggressive way, not in a way that's going to try and make these guys feel bad. Just going to challenge the logic of what they're saying, and hope to help you guys like avoid the pitfalls of going down the same route as these guys are suggesting. So here we have a post from someone. I've cleverly hidden his name with the top of a notepad, because that's just about as technical as I fucking get. And his post was, I think that's the hardest thing on Sky, is all the multi-way pots with no fold equity. One has bottom pair, the other has a gut shot, another has a weak flush draw, so no fold equity. One of them is bound to river your aces one way or another, and that's why I like to open ship. That's why I like my open ship ace line in the most fishy games. I understand what's led this individual down this path, but it really isn't the best line. You are losing so much value. I get it. You know, now and again, some guy's just going to call you off for 100 blinds with pocket 4s or king queen or what have you. But all the hands you get tons and tons of value from with ace, like small pocket pairs that are going to fold, probably 6-5 suited, 7-5 suited, 9-5 offsuit. You know, I mean, if you've got a guy there that's playing 60, 70, 80% VPIP, and then when you jam, that VPIP's going to shrink to what, less than 10, you know, 5% of hands, something like that maybe. maybe 10 at the outside. Maybe he never folds a pocket pair and, you know, some broadways. But you're just losing absolutely tons and tons of value. And all you're doing there by open shipping your aces is effectively saying, I don't know how to play against fish, so I'm just going to do this because it's positive EV. And it is positive EV because, you know, you're going to get them to fold nearly all the time and you're going to win at 100 big blinds 100. But you check your aces out in your holder manager or whatever it is. I mean, your win rate should be in the thousands of big blinds per 100. Or, well, look, there should be 4 figures per big blind per 100. So you are losing like incredible amounts of EV by just open shipping your ace. So you don't want to be doing things like that. You just want to raise it normally, or not necessarily normally, but if you find a guy that's willing to limp call 4x, then fine, next time you got a hand you want to isolate him with 5x. If he calls that, next time you got a hand you want to isolate him 6x. Find his tipping point. You know, if you can find a guy that will happily put 10 big blinds in pre with 5-3 suited, then fine. Then you just make it 10 big blinds or 11 big blinds. You find the point at which they're beginning to fold, and then you go back to the previous point where they were calling. So 4x, then 5x, then 6x, and 7x. If they finally fold at 8x, well, 7x might be their tipping point. You know, if you've got multiple limpers, you know, maybe you might want to try going 7x to begin with. And if you're getting multiple callers still, and then you go 8x. You ideally want to try and get it down to heads up. But if these games are as fishy as lots of you guys are saying, where people just never fold pre-flop to like anything within a reasonable parameter, then just you've got to find out what the top end of that parameter is, and then that's what you've got to start making it. You know, if you've got guys that like to limp call and they'll call up to 8x, so if you're making it 6x, well then you're not helping yourself, you're not doing yourself any favours. But the whole open jamming thing just isn't going to work. So what else can we got here from this guy? This guy can definitely test your mentality at times. C-betting and bluffing next to useless at 4 and L. Again, that cannot possibly be true. C-betting correctly with you know, like good ranges. So we're not going to be C-betting airballs. Like the weakest C-bet we're probably going to have in a heads-up pot is going to be probably like, I don't know, 2 overcards on a pretty dry board. So say you've raised ace-jack offsuit and the board's come down deuce 7 9, and then, you know, your opponent checks to you, well then we can find out a little half pot c-bet there. I mean, we're going to get some folds from their misses. They're not going to fold a pair. We're not expecting them to fold a pair, but we do improve past pairs by the river 25% of the time. So if we get called, we just get to check back turns when we miss, value bet turns when we hit, and then maybe sometimes if the board changes significantly, we can go for a bluff on the river if we think our opponent really does only have like a bottom pair or something like that. We don't just say but what this guy's eventually actually saying here is, I've just given up c-bet bluffing, and that again, that is not the way to beat fish. Yeah, I get it, fish fold less to c-bets. All that means is we've got to c-bets more smartly. If we only ever like c-bet our value hands, which I know tons of people say, c-bet your value hands, check everything else. You can't just do that, because even the biggest fish is going to like catch onto that eventually. Like when you check, you don't have anything, and then they're going to start betting turns on you. Because yeah, I get the fish, but lots of them, you know, they're not completely stupid. If they see that you just check back everything and only bet when you've got a hand, they're going to start like leading into you on turns with hands that may have folded the flop or may have folded to a double barrel. And again, you're just allowing fish to realise all of their equity. Now, why would you want to do that? I don't really understand why you want to do that. You try and deny equity to regulars, and regulars probably have much better ranges against you, playing hands that have much more equity, generally speaking, than fish do. So you try and deny equity to regulars when they have less equity than you don't try and deny it to fish, who probably who have more equity, the regulars. And you don't try and deny fish their like lower equity when they're just going to have loads of hands that just have to fold. If the guys are always like limp calling 9-5 suited, then, you know, outside of the whatever, the 25-30% of the time he flops a pair, and the 11% of the time he flops some kind of draw, or 12% of the time he's going to be check folding 50-60% of the time. That's just the way it is. And I mean, if people are really saying to me that fish aren't folding 9-5 suited on, say, 7 deuce jack, then no, I'm just not having that. It's just not true. And you know, you just need to understand your fish, understand the people you're playing against, exactly how much do they take, how much punishment can they take post flop. I mean, if you do find these guys who, and a lot of these fish really are quite fit or fold, you can bluff incredibly cheaply. Another thing is like bet sizing. If we're trying to make fish just fold like the misses and the weakest parts of the range. Why are we betting? Like, I see tons of players who come to me, they're betting 3/4 pot and full pot and 2/3 pot and what have you, trying to put more pressure on the fish. But if they're going to call, if they've got a piece no matter what the sizing, then why not just downsize your seat bets? You know, I mean, it's pretty easy to get him to cap his range. You know, you raise 3x, your opponent calls pre-flop, or you raise 4x, your opponent calls. So there's, I don't know, 8, 9 blinds in the pot, and you missed. And just bet 1/3 pot. You know, we're not trying to make them fold something good. We try to make them fold equity and put pressure on. And then, you know, if they just check call 1/3 pot, and then you turn some equity, for example, and they just, like, you bet, like, I don't know, 40%, 50% pot on the turn, maximum probably on the lower side, and they just check call again. Just how strong do you really think they are? I mean, when fish see small bet sizes and they've got a big hand, they can't wait to mash that raise button. Fish are into trapping versus small bet sizes, so we can learn an awful lot about where they're at in the hand for some very small bets on the early streets, and then decide on the river. Is this a river that I think gets us fold equity versus their very weak capped range, or is this river a rubbish card to bluff at and therefore give up? So, for example, the fish has got his 9-5, and the board's come down, say 5, 6, 8. So he's got a pair and a gut shot. So you bet he calls. The turns say a jack. You bet he calls. I mean, he's going to bet twice. He's going to call twice there because he has like a pair and a gut shot. And then the river's a king, a queen, an ace, something like that. You know, just bomb it again. And, you know, on the river there, it's like, what can, you know, they're going to call with all the 2 pairs, and all the 1 pairs are just going to fold. And I just think it's, you're just not thinking through when's a good spot to bluff, when isn't a good spot to bluff. You either just start on a bluff against a fish and continue it for all kinds of sizes, irrespective of board texture, or you're just giving up a lot. You kind of just want one strategy, like a one-size-fits-all strategy, and that just isn't going to be the way to win at poker in general. Certainly isn't going to be the way to win against fish. You want to see what your fish are doing. Some fish might, like, never fold to C bets, fold to tons of turn bets. Some fish might fold to the smallest C bets ever, all of the time. If you're not out there C betting and barreling against them when you've got hands that merit C betting and barreling, if you're like checking back with your decent semi-bluff type hands, how are you ever going to know what your fish can tolerate? How are you going to find out where his breaking point is? At what point does he fold certain parts of his range, and at what points does he, you know, what parts of his range will he call for what particular bet sizes? Because if you don't know, like, what parts of the range they're going to call with certain bet sizes, how are you going to know how to value bet against them correctly when you have a set and they've got bottom pair? If you don't know that they check call 80% pot bet on the turn with bottom pair, then how are you going to know to bet 80% when you've got your turn set? You know, you've got to do these things. You know, you've got to spend some money, and we're not betting for information, of course. That's not why I'm saying we're doing it, but you've got to spend some money. You've got to invest some money, get reads on your opponent. If you invest it wisely, it's going to be plus EV. All the bets you're making are going to be plus EV anyway, but you're also going to gain an absolute ton of information about how to exploit this fish for the rest of the game, the rest of the week, the rest of the month, however long he's playing there. You can't do that if you're just, like, blasting them constantly with, like, really bad hands to do it with, or just never trying to bluff them at all. You just can't do that. So what else did this gentleman say? Yeah, C betting bluffing next to useless for on most players on Sky. The style that works for me on there is very fit or fall very face. So bet when strong, check fold when I miss. Yeah, no problem check folding when you miss. I don't have any issue with that. But here we go. I don't even semi bluff very much unless I think they can fold. Normally just wait to hit them, bet. I get that. That's going to work. But it's not going to help you improve as a poker player. It's not going to help you make the most money, certainly. You know, if we're not semi-bluffing versus fish, so what we're saying here, I flop a decent equity hand against a fish where I can get some folds now, but I can also build a big pot for when I hit, I can get value. Then, you know, you've got the wrong approach. I'm sorry, sir. I mean, you're going to know who you are when you read this and know you watch the videos, but you can't just take those lines. It's not good enough. It's going to be good enough to beat 4-L. It's going to be good enough to beat 10-L, maybe. But if you have ambitions of playing higher, you're going to have to get over this now, because if you can't beat the fishy guys at 4-L and 10-L when there's maybe 4 or 5 of them at a table, you're going to have a really hard time making money when you get to like 20-L, 30-L, 50-L, when there's only going to be maybe 2 fish per table maximum, and that's if you're game selecting well. And you're going to have lots lots of other regulars like getting in your way, putting obstacles in your way at the same time. So you need to do better than you're doing right now in terms of strategy for beating the fish, especially if you hope to move up at some point in the future. This was the other post in the thread that I wanted to address. I actually replied to this saying that this post is just very wrong, and again, I mean no offence to the gentleman that made the post whatsoever, but there's no point just like agreeing with people, treating them like children, being scared of upsetting people. You know, if people are just like advocating taking or saying that they take an approach that for my money is just like a really bad approach to take, a really bad way to approach the problem, then you know, we need to speak out. And if we don't, then what's the point in having a Facebook group? What's the point in having a YouTube channel? You know, if we're not going to challenge kind of common logic that just doesn't work, then we may as well pack up and go home. So this gentleman said, I was tempted to jump on Sky, but he's not so sure now. He enjoys playing against, at the very least, semi-proficient players. I mean, that is just like, it's like the old-fashioned cliche back in the day where people used to take the piss and say, oh, you should move up. When people used to mourn about fishes never falling to raises, there used to be an old cliche, and it's still a cliche to this day, it's just used much less, which is like move up to where they respect your raises. And that was people taking the piss, saying move up to where people play tighter, move up to where people play better, because, you know, then you know, what's going to happen to you then? If you're not capable of beating games with 3, 4, 5 fish in them, you sure as shit are not going to be capable of beating higher stakes games, because the regulars are just going to eat you alive. You know, it's the fish that keep us going. If you think you can like not beat fish but move up to where everyone's playing like a range of hands like 18 to 25, 26% hands, they're 3-betting you more, and they're just not making anywhere near as many like bad calls versus your value bets. If you think you're going to beat that game but you're not going to, but you can't beat the fishy game, but you think you're going to go out and beat that game, then you're just deluding yourself. You really are. And another point, fish are only profitable when you have a hand, even if it's only ace high. If you're against a fish if you're against fish all the time and running bad on cards, what's your plan? Well, the plan is just play sensible, just play good poker. If I'm like, I get it's frustrating. Fish limp, I isolate to 5x with ace queen off suit. Fish calls, flop comes down 3-7-4. Fish donks, small, I call. Turn comes 9, fish donks, I fold. I get it. Or a similar sort of situation. You know, we isolate with 2 high cards again, or we raise with pocket 8 and it comes down 10 jack queen. Or so. All these situations, just play good poker. You know, if you're up against a fish, and that we talked about earlier, and you have at least 2 over cards and you are in position and you check 2, then absolutely take your stab. If you get called, then respond appropriately on the turns. If the turn comes down and it's not a particularly scary card, or it fits in well with what you think was the fish's flop calling range, then you just kind of slow down and give up. If the card comes down and it's a card that you think your opponent could perceive as a scare card, if it's a card that you think you could represent that now beats a big portion of the opponent's flop calling range, then take your stab at it again, make your bet, just play sensible poker. Again, it just seems like this gentleman here is saying, you know, like if you run a little bit salty against fish, you know, we can't have a plan. We can't know how to do it, and it's still simple. Just the plan is play good poker, and if you're not capable of playing good poker to beat fish, then I would respectfully advise that you go ahead and you work a damn sight harder on your game. You're going to get a lot better, and you're going to make a lot more money if you go away and work on your game until you can consistently beat these fishy games, than you are by moving to a different site or to different games or to higher stakes where players are going to fold more to you, but they're going to give you way less value. And then the last question here is the question to the guys already on Sky: are you better off limping wide and then just value betting when you hit? Well, no, we're just not going to limp, are we? I mean, if you're in like the fishiest game ever and there's 2 or 3 players already limped and you own your behind like pocket 3s, then of course limp behind. 6, 7 suited, of course limp behind. Hands like that, but you know, we're just going to limp behind everything and just like hope to hit big and value bet. Because again, what we're effectively doing is we're turning ourselves into the fish. We're bringing ourselves down to their level to then try and work our way up to outplay them again. It just isn't the correct approach. I'm sure there's loads of other things that other people say on forums all over the spot. Please do let me know in the comments some of like the funniest ones you've seen about how to deal with when people aren't beating fish. I fully understand, just to go back to the first point, that it is incredibly frustrating when playing against fish and we're not running good. You know, when fish are just calling us down. I don't know, we've got 2 aces, they've got the 9-5 again. They've called us down with the 5 all the way to the river, and they've hit the 9, and we can't see it coming. It's been like I don't know, deuce 5, 7, queen 9, and we just got 2 aces, and we're just going bet for value, bet for value, bet for value, as you should. And then they just like check call you on the river. You think you're gonna win, and they've rivered the 9-5. I get that is as fucking frustrating as it gets. I get it's incredibly frustrating that you 3-bet the fish with your kings. They call, the flop goes down ace high, and they've got ace 7 offsuit. I get all these things are incredibly frustrating, but we want fish calling 3-bets when they've got ace 7 offsuit and we've got 2 kings. You've got to just be aware, be grateful for the fact you're in those games. Don't hate the fish. For fuck's sake, don't berate the fish. Just learn to beat them. If you're doing something that like consistently isn't working, come out, put some hand reviews on 2+2 on Reddit and in our Facebook group or whatever else, you know, other groups you're members of, and just say, look, this is a common situation to find against fish and I just get lost, I don't know what to do, can we get some advice please? And then look at the advice, and not all of it's going to be good. I think we've kind of, with all due respect to the guys who've commented in this thread, we kind of demonstrated that today. Just because someone's written some advice to me, it doesn't necessarily mean it's good advice. Who's to say my advice is great in here? I think it's much better than what we've seen on the 2 comments. But yeah, just learn to get better and learn to play much better against fish. Don't find some weird adjustments like, I'm just going to go all the fuck in with aces and hope one of these morons calls me with 7-8 suited. That isn't the right way to approach the game. Moving up to tougher games isn't the right way to approach the game. Moving to just open limping because they never fold anyway isn't the right way to approach the game. These fish are fish because they are insanely exploitable. It is your job as a winning poker player, as a good player, to figure out what it is that makes them exploitable and then fucking ruthlessly exploit it. If they like, once they check call flop, they never fold, or they never fold turns, then it's simple. You don't bluff turns, you bomb turns for value. You know, if you find somebody who's check calling a lot of flops and check folding a lot of turns, then again it's quite simple. You just fire your double barrels against them, but only start firing when you've got hands that can like back into some made hands, or when you've got some equity. Just figure out what it is they're doing wrong, and then punish them for it. Don't do all the other stuff. Don't do all the stuff we've talked about already. I've kind of rambled in this. It's not been as clear as I would have liked it to be. Perhaps some hand examples would have been better. But yeah, effectively what I'm saying is, and there's no easy answer, you know, if you're making posts on forums saying that you cannot beat the fish, so therefore you're either going to move to another site, move up in limits, or adjust to some really bad strategy, then what it really means, what you're really saying to yourself is, fuck me, my game isn't anywhere near as good as it needs to be, and I'm going to have to work really hard to put it where it needs to be, because, you know, beating the fish at the lower stakes is, it's your breeding ground, it's your formative stage, and if you can't do that, then all the moving up in the world isn't going to help you, and all it's going to do is probably accelerate your losses. So if you do have any questions or any comments about what to do against these like really fishy, frustrating guys, or you want to just share any stories with me about what's happened to you, the adjustments you made that worked, the adjustments you made that didn't work, yeah, please share your stories in the chat or in the Facebook group, because yeah, people would like to hear them, people would like to see them. You're not alone in this struggle. There's tons of other guys out there that share this struggle with you, and yeah, it takes time, it takes effort. But you will get there if you want to. You will get there, because beating fishy games is not beyond the scope of anybody. Maybe people might hit a ceiling at 25-0 or 50-0 where they're just never going to be able to beat it, because the guys that are playing that game are going to be working harder spending more time studying, all those things, grinding more, getting more experience. Maybe there is a ceiling for some people, but 4-L or 10-L on Sky where the games are super fishy, or 5-L, 10-L Ignition, that shouldn't be anybody's ceiling, because there's enough dead money in those games for plenty of people to make plenty of money and put themselves in a position to be ready to move up. And the only thing stopping you from doing that is going to be yourself. So there you go. I hope you guys have got something from that. No offense to any of the guys who made the comments. I've used your comments because I think they did create some good discussion points, and I hope you appreciate that's why I've done it. And I haven't done it in any way to belittle anybody or to make them look like fools. That just isn't my style. Might be with some regulars on Sky, but it certainly isn't with guys in the Facebook group. So yeah, let me know what you think of the video. Let me know if there's any other concepts you want me to discuss. And yeah, we'll get on with doing that, and hopefully you guys have a good week and start stacking some more fish with your new and improved attitude towards doing so. Take care everybody, and bye bye for now.